has been at home all day, off school, with his mum. And he's been a terror ever since he got out of bed in the morning. Temper tantrums, sulking, rudeness, disobedience, throwing toys around, teasing the dog. And each time there's an incident, Mum says, "You just wait till your dad gets home." Well, around 6, Dad walks in, and Mum starts telling him about her terrible day and their son's bad behaviour. And Dad looks at his son, and before he can say or do anything, the boy shouts, "You can't touch me, I've been baptised." Now, wouldn't it be great if baptism worked like that? If we could say to the sorrows and the losses and the struggles and the difficulties that come along our way, "You can't touch me, I've been baptised." I wish it were that easy. I wish it were that simple. But if you've been baptised, and I imagine pretty well all of you have been, as a child, or perhaps more recently in adult years, you'll know that baptism doesn't work that sort of magic. Despite our baptism, we have to deal with all sorts of stuff that life throws at us, and some of it is not welcome. There are highs and lows. We get battered and bruised along the way. We have to make choices, sometimes very hard choices. We mess up incredibly, and there are consequences. And all of that is just normal. It's about us being human. And when Jesus is baptized in the Jordan River by John, when he steps down into the waters, he's embracing all of that. He's showing us that he's one of us in facing the challenges and the uncertainties of life. And when Jesus comes up from the river, he's heading into a journey that will have some wonderfully joyful and liberating moments. But there'll also be tears, sweat, pain, disappointment, desolation, and death before the love-born life of resurrection. But at this point, as he's being baptized, Jesus has done nothing that we've heard about. He hasn't recruited disciples. He hasn't preached or taught. He hasn't debated with scholars. He hasn't healed anyone as far as we know. He certainly hasn't done anything spectacular to make people think that he could turn water into wine or walk on water or raise the dead. And yet, with no runs on the board, as he prays, a voice comes from heaven. "You are my Son, the Beloved. With you I am well pleased." And right there, on the banks of the Jordan, still wet with the waters of his baptism, Jesus is blessed with a deep conviction that he is known and named as a loved child of God. And that deep conviction encourages him, strengthens him, gives him reason to hope, even in the worst circumstances of his life among us. And you know what? If you take nothing else away from this morning, take this. Those words spoken by the heavenly voice in today's gospel are as much for us as they were for Jesus. You are my son, you are my daughter, the beloved. With you I am well pleased. That was the core message in our baptism. And regardless of who you are, where you're from, what you've done or left undone, or whatever's happening in your life today, God claims you, God names you, and God delights in you. So in a way, there's truth, isn't there, in that badly behaving little boy saying, "You can't touch me, I've been baptized." Sure, he got himself into trouble. Anyone here managed not to do that? And yes, there were consequences, like having his tablet taken away or being sent to bed early. But through all of that, he was a much loved child. And so am I, and so are you. In many churches this morning, folk who've gathered will be doing what we're going to do. We'll be renewing baptism promises. So, as I suggested as we began Eucharist, take a moment now. Get in touch with your baptism. Perhaps you were too small to remember any of it, but you may have heard about it. Where did it happen? Who perhaps was the priest? Who was with you? Your parents? Did you have godparents or sponsors? Who were they? Are you still in touch? And now try this. I want you to say after me, I am God's child.
I am God's child.
I am the beloved of God.
I am the beloved of God.
With me, God is well pleased.
With me, God is well pleased.
I hope you can say that with some confidence. I hope you can say it believing in it. Let's try it again. I am God's child.
I am God's child.
I am the beloved of God.
I am the beloved of God.
With me, God is well pleased.
With me, God is well pleased.
And how does that make you feel? Do you believe that about yourself? Do you believe that about the people around you? Let's take those thoughts with thanksgiving as we turn now towards the font in just a moment and renew the promises of our